It is the Amber Nectar podcast. Hello, welcome to this week's edition of the podcast. We are now, of course, on YouTube, and welcome along if you're watching us on YouTube. Of course, you could be watching us live if you download a Periscope app to your tablet or to your phone, and you can watch us from there. And of course, what we almost now call the old-fashioned way, which is to listen to us on SoundCloud, which is how we started all those years ago. I'm Matt, he's Les, he's Andy, and we've got lots of things all related to Hull City to discuss from the last 7 days' worth of events. Not least, 4 points from 6 available since we last spoke to you. And I reckon of those 4 points, we were probably expecting none of them, Andy.
Yeah, 0 would have been a pretty accurate estimation of City's fortunes over the past week. I think I would have taken 1 point from the 3 games that we are 2/3 of the way through. To have 4 is actually rather ridiculous, and a testament to the fact that this does appear to be an authentic recovery that's going on, not merely a flash in the pan, because we have been playing well for some weeks, including the tail end of the Mike Phelan regime. I really do want to keep banging on about that, because I think we should remember that good performances are not exclusive to the new manager. What has changed under the new manager is that we're coupling good performances with good results, and indeed stellar results. The 4 points that we've collected have been as impressive as any points that we've ever collected in the Premier League.
And just the fact that they've come against, Les, the 2 biggest clubs in English football, 2 of the biggest names in world football. And what I love about it is that we'll go on to the Liverpool game shortly, but just briefly to look at the Liverpool game, the fact that we kind of expected it because of what happened at Old Trafford a few days before.
Yeah, I think the 0-0 draw at Old Trafford really gave City fans some true confidence, and it didn't feel cocky or didn't feel misplaced. It was like, oh, hang on a minute, Liverpool are having a few stumbles of their own. If we can go to Manchester United's patch and make them resort to sort of preposterous dives to try and have shots on goal, while we've got players breaking the ball against their the frame of their goal, then City can beat Liverpool at home, because we've done it before with a team not quite as strong as the one we've got at the moment, and without that sense of belief and urgency that we've got currently.
And you were there at Old Trafford, Andy. Les and I watched it on entirely lawful feeds, but you were there, you paid your money, you took your stepson along, and it was excruciating to watch on computer, although at the good end of excruciating, obviously. And I personally, having been sort of educated in being as negative as possible when something positive almost happens to City, was absolutely convinced that the moment Markovic hit the post towards the end, we were going to lose the match. What was it like in the away end that night?
It was probably as you would expect. You've always got this feeling of dread that something terrible is imminent. I guess rewatching the match, it never would appear that way on the highlights. Les mentions that Man United resorted to dives, which is apparently how things go there now, but they also resorted to nothing more than slightly aimless long balls. They were pumping them into the box and almost hoping for a little bit of a break, rather in the way that you might expect would be the case if we were doing the attacking against Manchester United. And that, I suppose, suggests that we are really quite organised and quite aware of what we're doing, and the team appears to have a really good shape and discipline to it, because Manchester United, as good as they are and as impressive as their side is, I just can't really recall us being cut open too many times whereby 2 or 3 passes absolutely slices you open and you can do nothing more than stand and say, well, they're just better than us. That never really happened, and when they're diving to the floor, they're flinging long balls in. Wayne Rooney's whining at the referee like a little well, we're on YouTube now, so I won't finish that sentence. But child is good, yes, although I'd be disappointed if any child of man behaved like Wayne Rooney and he would go straight to bed.
Or indeed looked like Wayne Rooney.
Well, we won't pick on his looks when we've got plenty of his misdeeds to focus upon. But the fact that Man United played in that way is testament to how City played, and we can all talk about whether or not there was a degree of misfortune that we didn't even win it. Markovic's shot was much cleverer for the replay than it looked at the time. It almost looked like a mishit effort, and then when you see it back, you realise that he was actually trying something pretty ingenious.
Liverpool fans would probably claim that it was a mishit, wouldn't they?
I'm not interested in the opinions of Liverpool fans, quite frankly, Matthew. I'm interested in the resurrection of Hull City, and it's going swimmingly at the moment.
Especially the Liverpool fans who find themselves in the East Stand at the KCOM, which we'll talk about shortly. One very brief observation I would have over the Manchester United game. You talk about how it actually didn't look like Manchester United were ever really going to slice City open with some fabulous flowing team-based football. Let's not forget that's over 3 games against Manchester United, not just over the one Premier League game that we had last week. The 2 League Cup semi-finals were both very close affairs, as demonstrated by the overall aggregate scoreline. Also, Jose Mourinho does seem to be, as well as being a countryman, he does, and I did say countryman, he does seem to be an admirer of Marco Silva in general, but that's not stopped him from claiming that the League Cup semi-final second leg finished 1-1 instead of 2-1 because he didn't approve of the penalty, and then walking out very early from the interview after the league game at Old Trafford. So whatever respect or lack of he has for Hull City or for his opponents, you would have thought he'd had a little bit more for a man whose presence at Hull City he seemed to initially warmly welcome. I'm not sure whether Marco Silva has allowed his estimation for Jose Mourinho to rise as a consequence of that. And coming out of the Man United game, Les, we move on to the Liverpool game on Saturday. Now, we talked about it last week. We were on a run of 3 consecutive wins against Liverpool with victory at the weekend, at home that is, having beaten them twice in the Premier League under Steve Bruce. And it wasn't as straightforward as it could have been, given the scoreline, but the fact that we've kept clean sheets against both these sides and scored when we absolutely had to, end of the first half and then after a concerted spell of Liverpool pressure in the second half, shows that we're being ruthless now. We are taking the chances that we previously weren't taking when they were coming under the previous regime. There's something about the confidence of the footballers as a consequence that Marco Silva has really enhanced.
Yeah, we approached the Liverpool game a little bit differently to the Manchester United game, because I thought we had far more possession at Old Trafford than we did at home to Liverpool. But we were more clinical with the possession, and ultimately that's what goes on the scoreboard. The possession stuff's one of those post-game stats while people are off making a cup of tea. It's not the key thing, and I like that flexibility from Silva to sort of adapt to that. We in many ways I thought we took the game to Manchester United and we were creating goal scoring opportunities when they patently weren't, hence Zlatan's preposterous I'm going to trip Huddleston and hope the referee gives me a penalty. He then comes out and says that Jakubovic is acting up for the cameras. His entire career has been acting up for the cameras, unnecessary back heels, overhead kicks. That he sort of seems to be sort of the Instagram generation's footballer. So for him to accuse somebody else of it is hilarious. I'm not even going to get angry about it. It's absolutely hilarious. And as is Jose Mourinho's, flouncing about, while Marco Silva shows the acceptable face of modern Portuguese management, incredibly dignified, incredibly stylish, doesn't feel the need to flounce out of interviews. If there's a question he doesn't like, he just plays it with a straight bat. And yeah, I did like the fact that City, we didn't have as much of the possession against Liverpool. Liverpool are probably slicker with their passing fluidity and possession play than Manchester United are at the moment, and City took that into account. It's just that when we had the opportunity we hit them and it worked.
What about the new signings then? Because we've seen pretty much all of them now, haven't we? I think we have seen all of them at least once now since the transfer window slammed shut, he says, looking at the camera. And I mean, I love the fact that we've got a player called Alfred for a start. The last one I think was Alf Wood in the 1970s, and a player called Alfred has scored once again for Hull City after a 40-year gap. And he's not going to score many easier goals. He still needed to be there to follow up what looked like an unwinnable header for Abel Hernandez from that corner, but follow it up he did. And the identity of the scorer doesn't matter in a team context, but it's good that one of the new signings has got off the mark very, very quickly and did it at precisely the right time at the end of the first half.
Sure, I mean, scoring a goal early in your career at a new club can only help your confidence. And we come back to the confidence thing again. City came under the cosh extensively in the second half against Liverpool, and we remarked on it on Twitter during the game. Everyone in the stadium was well aware that Liverpool were really coming at us. But it was, again, similar to Manchester United away, in that there was a real belief in the side that they weren't going to let this one slip. And you contrast that to earlier in the season, where coming under the cosh meant that at some point we were probably going to concede a goal, and that just wasn't the case. Liverpool had loads of possession, loads of corners, a fair few shots, although no real clear chances. And it's the ability of City to not give easy chances away that I've been most impressed with lately. It speaks of organisation and resilience, and I really, really like that. We're not easy beats anymore. And to stay in the Premier League from where we are, we need somewhere in the region of a point and a bit a game. We don't need to do anything amazing. We just need to get maybe one win every 4 games and a draw somewhere in there, and we're going to be almost there. So just stop it with the stupid, cheap defeats, I think is key to that. Because how many times do we cough up a rubbish away defeat after an okay performance? We've got to just take it one step further. If we're not going to win the game, we're not going to win the game, and we're not going to win many in the Premier League because it's the bloody Premier League. But if we can just get a point every now and then and keep that total ticking over, then that's great. And I think that's the way that we look at the moment. We look as though no one is just going to turn up and easily roll us over. Even Chelsea, who are going to win the league by an absolute mile, had to really work against us, and I really like this newfound resilience.
What about Kamil Grzycki? How do you think he looked in his... Because we've not got a great recent record when it comes to players called Kamil, but he made a decent start.
Yeah, and like other Kamils, he's not played, done lung-busting runs for one game and not done anything, and then scored like a hatful of own goals. We'll say, I think he's very exciting. I think of all of the players we've signed, is the one that really catches the eye. And it's interesting, sort of like Polish fans have taken a real interest in where he's gone. And I remember Grzycki playing in the European Championships for Poland and in the European Championships before. And it never occurred to me that somebody doing so would be at Stade Rennais in France. Which, it's not to disrespect, we're Hull City, so I'm not looking to disrespect teams abroad. But I had sort of thought Grzycki would have been playing at a slightly higher standard than that. So he really does look one to be excited about, and he seems really excited to be at City, and I like that. I love the fact that he was doing television broadcasting for Polish TV on the sidelines at Old Trafford. I thought that was fantastic, to get that involved so quickly. And then there's pictures of him stood outside of the KC with City fans with Polish flags, and if you remember at the trenching game in Żylina, there was a Warsaw Tigers flag. So we've had a bit of Polish support for a little while, and now they've really got somebody to cheer, and I think we've got somebody to get excited by. It's easy to judge a player by YouTube, but the one thing I liked about his YouTube clips was he can play on either wing. So if Elmo's not about, he can go on that side. If we need, I think we're more likely to need him on the left side. He can play over there. But interestingly as well, he can take corners, he can take free kicks, he can take set pieces. So I think that's a real smart bit of recruitment.
We've seen a little bit more of El Abdellaoui and Ivandro and Nias, of course, who scored a lovely second goal against Liverpool. And that leaves us with Andrea Ranocchia, who Les waxed lyrically about-ish. Waxed indeed. It wasn't very lyrical. Erudite, articulate, maybe. Lyrical, perhaps not. The point is that it wasn't a sign that filled our Sampdoria fan sitting to my left here with any sort of great optimism. But he has started pretty well. And here's a question I'm going to ask both of you to answer one at a time. We've got 2 incredibly experienced English defenders in Michael Dawson and Curtis Davis. Now, both of them are injured, of course. Are we in a situation now where, thanks to Ranocchia and Harry Maguire, their place in the side, when they're fit, is by no means guaranteed?
It's not guaranteed, I guess, in as much as we didn't miss them on Saturday. Now, Ranocchia's only played once, and I would be inclined to see more how that goes. Les's scepticism last week was interesting, and let's not suggest that he's all of a sudden ahead of Michael Dawson based upon one game.
He did come on at Old Trafford, of course.
Yes, he did. To be fair, that's right. I'd not recalled that.
And maybe I'm basing that question slightly unfairly on the fact that I don't think Michael Dawson could have played that Bolton the ass for the second goal.
Harry Maguire could have. So,
but he was already on the pitch.
Yeah. So who knows? He's had he's not conceded a goal yet, has he? So the early signs are good, but whether or not he's automatically ahead of two players who've done pretty all right for us this season.
But he is the manager's signing, and of course the others aren't. I mean, these things do happen. No matter how successful or popular some footballers are at clubs, when managers change, opinions change.
Of course, Silva doesn't have the sentiment of Davis being here for quite a long time, scoring in a cup final, or is he going to care? Is he going to give two hoots about Dawson and the fact that his brother played for us for over 10 years? It's meaningless to him, and it's a good thing that players come in and offer such competition for places and don't allow anybody to be complacent. It's funny. I've had a few tweets of people where they're trying to say that I said Ranocchia was a crap defender. What I said was Ranocchia was crap at Sampdoria, and he's had struggles recently with Inter Milan to the point where they've lost faith in him and they're looking to sell him. Those viewpoints are not incorrect, and they don't become retrospectively incorrect because he's had a really good game for City. I could only speak on what I'd seen of him before. But he was excellent. He was majestic. I had somebody phrase him as elegant. He hasn't looked elegant in a single game I've seen him play in a blue shirt or a blue and black shirt before he pulled on the amber and black of City. I want the kid to be really good. I like Italian football. I want our first Italian international outfielder to be exceptional. And as I said last week, if Silva can... I don't want to call Myler a pig's ear, but if Silva can improve David Myler to such an extent, and I wasn't entirely joking when I said on Things We think that Tom Huddleston's sort of like a 2017 Ballon d'Or nominee, because he's just been absolutely wonderful, and you have to put that down to the manager. If he can re-energise those players' careers at City, he can re-energise Ranocchia as well, who is a 20-odd cap Italian defender, was a youth player of a lot of talent. I don't believe that's all gone. And I really like Silva's, pick up a mob of misfits, people that haven't worked at other clubs, and make them work here. I like it. It's a good philosophy.
I like that you mentioned David Myler, who I've absolutely adored for the duration of his City career, if only because he gets a preposterous amount of stick that's largely unfair. But he's had a poor season, let's put it mildly, until now. He's played at right back against Manchester United, and quite frankly, I don't know if Elmo's played as well at right back all season as Myler did against Manchester United. Obviously, Josh Tymon has also looked brilliant, and he excelled at Old Trafford as well. Everybody did, to be fair. You could pick them all out one by one. But it is interesting that players who had gone off the boil, Huddleston, for example, who we have suggested shouldn't even have been in the side at various points this season, and Myler, who shouldn't have been anywhere near it at varying times, they've been absolutely terrific, both of them, Huddleston in particular. And when we were having the Monday morning debrief of the last City game at work this morning, the conversation was, can Huddleston get another England cap while he's at City? It's early days, 10 games isn't going to get you in the England squad when you've not been in it for years. But that sort of form, replicated over a longer period of time, that must get you close. That
makes a change from your usual Monday morning conversational starter, which is, can Harry Maguire get an England cap? Maybe both of them are going to get called up before long. Let's not be over optimistic about these things.
I think it is time that Hull City form the spine of the England team, though, isn't it? It's long overdue.
Yeah.
What was it? They're saying good Yorkshire, good England, good City, good England. Is it the same?
Entirely possible, and given that a Yorkshireman's set to be appointed as the New England cricket captain as well, then that just allows your theory to hold even more water, doesn't it?
All is well with the universe again.
Indeed. You mentioned El Mohammadi. He lost the African Cup of Nations final with Egypt last night. He's on his way back. Is he going to get back in the team? Should he get back in the team? And do you think we'll ever see him play at right back again?
Well, that's a fair few questions, but I think, yes, we will see him getting back in the team. We'll probably at some point have to play him at right back. No, I don't think he'll get straight back in because there's no reason not to play Abdellaoui at the moment.
Yeah, Abdellaoui, he is the first choice right back, but of course Elmo can come back in if there's an injury issue there. We're not going to see Odebajo until next season. I get the feeling, I know it sounds like you want to come back in, I just want to say, I get the feeling, because Elmo's been a very, very good player for City, but he's had a bad time, mainly because he's been out of position. His shoulders have slumped a lot. But I just get the feeling that El Mohammadi might be a Marco Silva type of player.
Well, Marco Silva seems to excel in rejuvenating the careers of the lost, so who knows? Wasn't Odebajo named in City's ongoing squad for the rest of the season, by the way, suggesting that he might be close to fitness again? That would be nice if those three can have a scrap over right back.
Not literally a scrap, otherwise Odebajo might do his knee in again or something. But yeah, Elmo, I just think, having said that, all the players seem to be Marco Silva type players, because the only ones who've left of any seniority are Jake Livermore and Robert Snodgrass, and that's because the Quids came in for them. I mean, Alex Bruce has been injured all season, so it makes sense, even if he's not going to play for City again, because he's out of contract, and he is, as we touched on last week, slightly representative of maybe unfairly, of a previous regime. But generally, Marco Silva has got everybody in the first team squad who's available and given them a go, and there's no reason why he shouldn't do the same with El Mohammadi.
I generally feel Marco Silva could bring Dave Bamba back into the club and make him perform like Socrates. You can't hold El Mohammadi being deemed good enough to play for his country at a major international tournament against him, even though it is unlikely that he goes straight into the team. But he certainly, he's not going to be lacking for fitness. He's played in pretty much every game of the African Cup of Nations. Same goes for Mbakani, who didn't quite play as many games, but he's another one who now has to sort of get the manager's attention and show that he's worthy of a place. Regardless, I'd rather never see El Mohammadi at right back again. It's just not his position, and I think him playing in that position has contributed to a lack of interest from him. There's no excuse for what happened last year when he didn't look interested. I don't really know what's going on there, but the one thing that I like about Marco Silva's play is he takes a lot of the nice passing about that we did have under Marco Silva, but he injects a whole lot more purpose into it. We're not passing for the sake of passing. We're passing because we're trying to create goal-scoring opportunities. I would say El Mohammadi has got a role to play in City crafting goal-scoring opportunities.
Is that then, if as we try and get to grips with what Marco Silva's style of play is, and you mentioned there's less passing for the sake of it, are we more direct or are we just more purposeful? Where does it all sort of tie in? Because I agree we've stopped fannying around with it in our own half, which is not always a bad thing if you want to slow the game down or take the sting out of it or whatever the hell you want to do. You manage the game as it comes along. Especially
if you've got ball-playing defenders who are capable and confident doing it.
Precisely, but we are conspicuously doing it less. I don't think our possession stats have gone anything other than down since Silva came in, but then we seem to do more of it. So why is it working? Are we more direct or are we just better with what we've got?
Maybe we're direct depending on the opposition. Maybe we're more tiki-taka depending on the opposition. Silva does appear to be able to adapt not just his tactics but also get City's player adapted. You never thought you would see the day when an Italian defender puts a long ball over the top and somebody chases onto it, but that's what happened. But it was a beautiful pass. I really loved Nias's finish. He took 2 touches before he struck the ball, and each touch just moved the ball away from the defender on the other side of the ball.
The first touch was lovely because the ball bounced ever so slightly behind his run and he had to do a flick heel, sort of the outside of his right foot to get the ball in position. Otherwise he would have had to stop his run and start again, which would have given the defender time to get in front of him, or between him and the goalkeeper.
Exactly. That touch took the defender out of the play. That defender could not get a challenge in, and the second touch opened up his foot to smash the ball in. I just thought, from a technical standpoint, that was magnificent.
Going to your point about Ranocchia earlier, Nias is the same, really, isn't he? I mean, you talk about what you saw or didn't see Ranocchia do in a Sampdoria shirt. You think about what Everton fans have never seen Nias do in an Everton shirt, and then suddenly he's scoring the second goal to beat their greatest rivals in a 2-0 win for City, and that's 2 goals in a week, which is 2 goals more than he ever looked likely to score for Everton.
pretty sure that Everton fans like Nias now.
Almost definitely. One other thing that's come up this week about Marco Silva's regime are these little, quirks to the way he's running the team on a day-to-day basis. They're training more, they're training harder, and they're not getting days off at all. I mean, if there's a match on a Saturday, then there may be a warm down for slightly injured players or non-senior players on a Sunday, but otherwise everybody else gets a day off and often gets the Monday off as well, unless there's a game on the Tuesday. No days off. I mean, I'm assuming they're getting Sundays off after games because everyone gets a Sunday off if you've got a day job. But beyond that, they're in training every single day. And apparently puddings have been banned from all meals.
I like the way you've pointed out that Marco Silva respects the Sabbath. It's certainly a far cry from what we had under Steve Bruce and under Mike Phelan. I think they had a bit of a laissez-faire attitude towards training. Who knows? The thing with Silva is he's new to the club, so this taking the club away and having him arrive on a coach and the intensity of the training, that might just be until he instills everything he wants the players to take on board. But maybe it isn't. But if you're a professional footballer, there were professionals in there. So if you have to spend a bit more time at work and a few more days away from your family because it's going to professionally improve you, so be it. If we're paying players thousands of pounds, you justify it by taking on board what your manager's saying. Not just during training sessions, but also when he's trying to instill an ethos of nutrition and less puddings, and also the blackboard stuff.
Indeed, and it's a contrast of cultures, isn't it? I mean, Marco Silva has come in as a Portuguese manager. He's only our second ever non-British Isles manager, and the other one was steeped in English football history before he got the job anyway.
Steeped in puddings as well.
Indeed, yeah. That's possibly the reason why. The last European manager that we had far too many puddings. Marco Silva's gone the other way. But on a serious note, the contrasting cultures is there. Marco Silva has never managed in the Premier League before. He's clearly done his research, including learning the language when he knew that his next stop was likely to be England. And another thing he's done, he said, right, well, I know what works in Portugal. Even if they've not heard of it in England, I'm going to introduce it anyway. It's kind of Arsene Wenger making all the players eat pasta 22 years ago, all over again, but in Marco Silva's own sort of Portuguese way.
I don't know whether it's this would work just in Portuguese football or whether this just is what's going to work in top flight European football at the moment. I wouldn't put it past him to have that knowledge and understanding of all of them.
Well, David Moyes and I think Paolo Di Canio, when he was up at Sunderland, banned ketchup from all meals taken within the club, and now Marco Silva has banned puddings. I mean, when you think about some of the players that we've had who look like they've consumed far too many puddings, I think it's probably a policy that's long overdue.
It strikes me as a bit of a high wire act, this. Now, it's great while everyone's buying into it, instinctively making them come into training constantly and banning such things as puddings. Ooh, I don't know, it almost feels a little bit like you're being a bit autocratic, which is fine when it's all going well, but I do wonder if the results went against us, if that's going to start sounding the other way.
Hang on a minute, but some might take that to suggest if we go on a losing run of 3 games, fans are going to blame it on the players not getting any pudding after their pre-match meal.
Well, crack out the cream eggs then if we lose 3 in a row. I don't know, but I wonder. Les makes a good point. Maybe this is just for now, while the ethos is instilled, and then perhaps things can return to whatever normal is for a professional footballer, because it's certainly not normal for the rest of us who would think 40 hours a week is the minimum. I can't imagine that running a professional football into the ground for 40 hours a week is a good idea anyway, so it's obviously very different, but I just I'm interested by it. I'm interested by it, and I'm sure Marco Silva doesn't, for crying out loud, need me to tell him how to be a manager. He's clearly got something going for him. But he's just got to retain a bit of flexibility, hasn't he? The days off have got to happen from time to time because players have got families, and let's see how we go. I'd be interested to see how, if he's still here in a year and it's all succeeding, let's see how things can compare then to how they are now when he's new and clearly desperate to make a mark.
Watching the match of the day highlights of the Liverpool game, that final shot of Jurgen Klopp sitting on the advertising hoardings in front of the away dugout, looking extremely disconsolate, but more to the point, looking exactly like Malcolm the father in The Modern Parents in Viz.
He had shit trainers on as well, didn't he?
I don't know. Les is far more qualified to comment than I am. Mind you, you've now married into a jewellery family. You've been talking about Marco Silva's watch an awful lot lately. So you talk about Jurgen Klopp's trainers. You talk about Marco Silva's watch. Who's going first?
No, I want to talk about Marco Silva's watch. I like this idea of the household Dalton. All huddle around like a Rolex yearbook trying to work out
yearbook. Get with the programme, Grandad.
I love this discussion. Are you going to tell us
Wisdom
more?
for watches.
Are you going to tell us more about what watch, what timepiece you feel Marco Silva's modelling currently?
We think it's a suitably modest Longines. It's maybe as he takes City onto European glory, you can look for more exotic timepieces. But for now, he fits in with the man who we're all slightly in love with.
What about those trainers, just before we go any further?
Well, I don't know what Marco Silva's trainers are like, but I know that Jurgen Klopp's a cack.
The New Balance trainers, because they're giving them to buy Liverpool's trainer partner or whatever.
Liverpool's trainer.
So if Marco Silva's a Longines, what brand of timepiece was Mike feeling, you reckon?
Swatch.
Yeah, you Cassia with a calculator.
I've heard that Mickey Mouse wears an Ehab Alem wristwatch. And talking of him, you'll really enjoy that segue. You can tell I've been doing this a very long time. The video, 18 minutes long, of Ehab Alem talking. Did he have actually anything to say?
I hope you two won't banish me from Nectar forever, but he had one or two interesting things to say, and said them in a slightly, less incoherent manner than usual. There was one or two interesting snippets about the transfer window and how it all came about. The obvious problem is, it was an in-house club interview. He won't go anywhere near the independent media when he cannot simply say what he wants unchallenged. The idea of him submitting to a David Burns interview is still inconceivable, so all that they can really do is ask someone at the club to ask him some questions, which I strongly suspect were planned out in advance. And it added nothing really to what we know of the present situation. The major issues such as concessions and the club's inability to call itself by its own name, none of these things were discussed, and it rendered the whole thing mildly interesting but essentially irrelevant.
Somebody said staged, edited and polished and very, very predictable. I'm glad they're talking about Ehab's video and not this podcast, because it did come up quite quickly after I asked the question, so I was slightly concerned there. What do you make of it all?
I've been quite amazed at how quickly people have been placated by it, as if to say, oh, it's really good and we're getting what we want, we get communications. And I agree with some of them that it's a start, but starts are no good unless you have a follow-on. And he sort of alluded to discussions with the fans about things that they want right towards the end. So who knows, maybe he's going to discuss concessions at some point. You've got to think the Premier League are continually haranguing the club about the lack of concessions, and they're not going to keep buying some of the seats in the corner are really cheap. Isn't that effectively a concession? I do think it's something that the club are going to have to address at some point, and maybe at some point they might start using the actual club's name on communications that isn't just Twitter, but I mean that video was put on the YouTube channel, which is the Hull Tigers YouTube channel, so yeah, it is a start, but a start is no use if you don't have a conclusion. I would hope that the conclusion is a video where the family announces they've sold up and they're going. And I really didn't like Ehab's waistcoat.
So we've got watch, trainers, and now waistcoat. Why didn't you like it?
No.
It's a match-worn waistcoat. You could now get hold of it.
It's an executive box waistcoat. It's one of the first times he's been in one of the executive boxes this season. I thought it was really interesting that the photograph that the club put, the still image they put on the video, was of him celebrating a goal. Well, that image is from about 2012. It's quite an old video. It's nothing that's new, because of course they don't go to games anymore.
Fair enough. Talking of match-worn stuff, we've got a bit of time. If you've happened upon us on YouTube and you don't know who we are and what's going on here, and why would you, if you're not a Hull City supporter, then we run the Amber Nectar fanzine. You'll find us at ambernectar.org, and we've been doing these podcasts as an audio experience, inverted commas, for 3 or 4 years now, but we've now sort of, we do them live on Periscope so people can watch them if they're sad enough and the Coronation Street's crap, but now we've got them on YouTube as well. And this room we're in, it's a pity we can't really sort of pan around the room, I don't know whether we can, but this room we're in is full of match-worn Hull City shirts going back more than 30 years. It belongs to this guy on my left here, Les, who will even be doing an exhibition of them for the UK City of Culture later this year. So that explains all the paraphernalia that you can see behind us. And it's not just shirts, it's other official clothing that's been worn by officials or players of the club, as well as other accessories as well. And I just want to get one, because Les has just acquired this, I think, or even if he hasn't just acquired it, it's just gone on display. Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink, who played for City now a second Premier League season under Phil Brown and then briefly Ian Dowie, 2009-2010. I want to mention firstly how much work it involves to get all those letters on. Vennegoor of Haskins was what I saw written on the back of one of these ones from a Hull City fan who had his own surname interspersed into that of our Dutch striker. But the signature's interesting, if you can see that there, and Les will now explain that signature.
I love the fact that he's not only done his full surname, you know, I mean, most people, if you've got a long name, you just do a squiggle. Not only has he done his full surname, but he's even used his full first name, which none of the clubs he played for used. You know, they called him Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink. There he's put Johan. There's a little bit of mud on it, which I like, so that, it's definitely worn. It's probably worn at the Fulham game. Because early when he first came, the club used the full-size Premier League letters, and it looked preposterous because it just completely encapsulated the number. But later on, the club ordered the smaller player-size ones for players with longer names. And when we played Manchester City, there was 2 players on the pitch with the smaller name sizes, because Manchester City had Wright-Phillips and City had Vennegoor of Hesselink. But that shirt has come from well, a Liverpool fan actually, who might not like me anymore, who lives in Holland, and he acquired it from Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink himself when he was playing for PSV Eindhoven, and the chap sent me a picture of him holding it. I think there's a pretty damn good provenance there. And
again, just for our new viewers, the oldest shirt in your collection is the one actually we can see in the corner of the screen next to the Vennegoor of Hesselink shirt, which is that black and amber number 9, and just tell us what vintage that is.
And that one is 78, 79. There is one just beneath it that is a couple of years older when we had the monogram rather than the tiger head logo. But yeah, the oldest ones in my collection, and the most expensive, because somebody mentioned that on Periscope. The oldest ones I've got are from the mid to late 70s.
Good player, Vennegoor of Hesselink. Hope he's doing well. We've got a little bit more time left, so we look ahead to this weekend. Now, when we look ahead to games, given that football fans talking about what we think a manager might do and then getting it entirely wrong is quite tiresome, what we tend to do is just look at previous examples of the fixture. And as we're away at Arsenal, and yes, we have talked about this before on the podcast, but we can never tire of bringing up a certain game at the Emirates in September 2008, can we, Andy?
Which one? I think I tried to draw a parallel this morning on things we think that in 2008 it was the season when everything felt possible, when City had just made the Premier League for the first time and we were trading meaty blows with some of the biggest clubs in England, and Arsenal was the culmination of that. It was, I think, if you relied on bookies as pre-match odds as a guide, it was the single biggest shock that the Premier League has had to date in over obviously 20-something years, and that was the time of everything felt possible. And yeah, I hesitate to ever draw parallels with that season, direct parallels at least, because it was a one-off, never to be repeated. But all of a sudden, the same sort of feeling is just starting to creep back. It was typified in the Liverpool game, to briefly go back to that, when we all thought there was a chance of something happening here. I wonder if there's a chance on Saturday of something really, really quite amazing happening. Now, Arsenal might turn us over by a few, because they're good enough if they're in the right kind of mood. But 2008 was one of the single most glorious days in our entire history. I don't think that's a particular exaggeration. I'd love to think we can get somewhere close to it again, because we all remember the exultation we felt leaving the Emirates that day. I'd love to have another taste of that.
It was only the second time we'd ever been in the same division as Arsenal, and the first was the season 1914-1915, which I think didn't actually end as a season because of the outbreak of the First World War. In between, we played them in the League Cup in 1977, when John Hawley scored in a 5-1 defeat at Highbury, and then in the League Cup again, which I remember going to, 1988, when actually another ex-City player played in that game, which was Brian Marwood, and he scored the winner in a 2-1 victory, but Arsenal had already won the tie because I think they'd won 4 or 5-0 in the first leg at Highbury. Then we went to the Emirates, and that 2-1 win, it wasn't just the fact that we won so unexpectedly, so brilliantly, and within an onslaught from Arsenal in the second half. I mean, Myhill made one amazing save from Fabregas, Van Persie missed a hatful of chances, we even scored their goal for them. It wasn't just that, it was not only the biggest shock of the modern Premier League era, as Andy alludes to there, but contained possibly the greatest individual goal any Hull City player's ever scored.
Quite possibly, and I think what was fantastic about City that day is that we actually went for it. It wasn't like we hoped we might get something. City played 3 strikers up front, and it really messed with Arsenal's heads, I think. Truly a wonderful day. I take the point what you're saying, Andy, about sort of that sense of anything can happen. Although having said that, I don't think we necessarily thought we were going to go win in 2008, whereas this time round you do get a sneaky feeling that actually City could go to Arsenal this weekend and do something, and maybe some of that comes from that day, that sense of they're not invincible, they are beatable, and the only thing that's disappointing about the 2008 win is that Arsenal Fan TV didn't exist then, but it does now. And so if City, were managed to win again, can you imagine the on-air suicides or vein popping, the heart arrhythmia that's going to happen by people who say fam and bruv when talking about a football game? It's going to be wonderful, and that would be the one thing that this time round, whether we deserve to win or not, would really top it, would be the utter implosion emotionally of Arsenal fans on Arsenal Fan TV.
And Arsenal fans are known as the most self-entitled in football, so just for that, aside from our own emotional involvement in Hull City, it would be wonderful to take something from them. The last time we went in the Premier League, we did get the 2-2 draw under Steve Bruce when Diame and Hernandez both scored. We've played them twice away in the FA Cup since then. Of course, we've played them on neutral territory a few times, not least the 2014 FA Cup final, but a couple of semi-finals back in 1930 as well. And actually, in that 2008-2009 season, Andy, we went back there in the FA Cup quarter-final, and a slightly more controversial evening, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were unlucky that evening. I think we led, with a fortuitous goal, but it felt like we were going to do it again. In fact, I remember us all singing, we've done it before, we'll do it again, as City held the lead for a reasonable period in the match. I think...
Well, we were 15 minutes from beating them, just like we were 90 minutes away from beating them at Wembley.
The goal was coming, I think. Now, I seem to recall that it came in slightly contentious circumstances, and it being one of those occasions where you come away from the ground thinking, why can't referees give decisions based upon the merits of the issue rather than the size of the club and the capacity for complaining in the media of the manager who wants the decision. But hey-ho, such is life.
It was a defeat that became about what Cesc Fabregas was wearing, because he was out injured and but still in the dugout in a ridiculous puffer jacket, strutting around on the pitch after the final whistle went.
Still not sure Phil Brown really helped himself that evening, looking back.
He really didn't. I mean, Nick Barmby scored that night with a deflected goal, and we hung on and we hung on and we hung on, and then they scored twice in the last 15 minutes, including a blatantly offside winner by William Gallas. A couple of defeats after that. The one thing I will say, just to round this off, is that we all, as you said, Andy, we remember that euphoria of beating them in the league in 2008-2009 with the goals from Giovanni and Daniel Kuzan. But a lot of our visits in the Premier League since, including that 2-2 draw, to be fair, excuse me, went on a theme of let's see what happens, as opposed to any kind of positive vibe around the team actually being able to go and give one of these big teams a game on their own patch. It was one of those free hits that people refer to. And I don't think, Les, Marco Silva does free hits. He's going to go this weekend and he's going to want to win.
He doesn't do free hits. He was unhappy with the result at Chelsea. Wonderful, wonderful. He wants to go to the Emirates and he wants to win. I really hope he does it. You know, not just for the obvious reason, which is suicidal Arsenal fans.
That's the end of the podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube. ambernectar.org to find out more about us. We are on Twitter, but it's really awkward, our Twitter handle, because I have to say __, and if we wrote it on a little piece of paper, it wouldn't necessarily be obvious that there were 2 underscores in our name. But it's amber__nectar, and it's the